LBC.
25 minutes to 1. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, and you're also about to be listening to James Rhodes on LBC. James has been in the news recently for the most bizarre and Byzantine of reasons, although had you been on the receiving end of the experiences he has undergone recently, you'd probably be reaching for rather more post-watershed adjectives, shall we say. He's a supremely gifted pianist who I've had the privilege of seeing in action on stage. I don't think he'll mind me saying he's also become a friend in recent months, as a result partly of my interest in the child sex abuse scandals that have been unfolding and his interest in listening to mediocre talk radio. His autobiography has been published, which in normal circumstances would be the least interesting element of a discussion with an author about a recently published book. That's the bit you say, available in all good bookshops. But it is certainly something, James Rhodes, you thought might never happen.
Yes, it involved 14 months of the most extraordinary and spiteful and venomous legal battle, which ended up in the Supreme Court, if you can believe that. The reasoning behind it, someone leaked a copy of an early manuscript, an early draft, to my ex-wife who lives in another country. Without speaking to me, she hired lawyers. She had a month to prepare. And then they hit us with a threat of an injunction because the book is about music. I'm a musician. I love music. It's also a love letter to my wife, Hattie, who you've met, and you know how far above my weight I'm punching with her. But because it's a memoir, and they asked me to write about my life, it covers in some detail the abuse that I went through when I was a kid. There was sustained rape for a number of years. It led to spinal surgeries and various other symptoms that have been ongoing, really, for the last 30 years, ever since it happened. And her lawyers felt this was, to use their words, the information was so toxic that should it appear in any form, it could cause catastrophic harm to our son, which was such a bizarre thing, you know, A, because he's 12 and he'd just giggle at some of the swear words and he just wouldn't care.
Or understand.
Or understand. I mean, of course not. It's an adult book. It's not a children's book. And in much the same way as I wouldn't let him play Grand Theft Auto or watch, you know, any David Lynch movie, he's not going to read this book. And the ensuing court case was so extraordinary. I mean, I was likened in open court to a husband knowingly infecting his wife with AIDS, for example. They were using phrases like, all of this toxic material gathered in one place, like a time bomb, like a hand grenade waiting to go off. But not only were they asking to ban the book, they were after a gagging order. Get this, it would stop me from speaking or writing in any medium, anywhere in the world, in perpetuity, about any of these core aspects of my past, not just the abuse, but self-harm, suicide, mental illness, and even the treatment of mental illness. Which would mean, for example, I wouldn't be able to say to you on Twitter or here, I'm off to see my shrink after this, without the threat of imprisonment, in 2015 in Britain.
Which is, of all the strange and troubling tales that we encounter on a regular basis, by far the strangest story I have heard. It was really an epic act of bravery for you to tell your story, probably also part of your recovery and therapy in some rather large way, and then to find the courage to come forward, which is so relevant to so many conversations about child sex abuse at the moment, to find the courage to come forward and then to be silenced.
I think that's the worst thing. I don't want to talk about this stuff. I don't want to write about it. It's incredibly exposing. One of the legacies of abuse like this is one of shame, and that's, you know, just a killer emotion. It's the hardest thing to deal with. And so it's not a comfortable thing, it's not an easy thing to do, but I think if we're lucky enough to have a voice, if we're lucky enough to have survived it, we have to stand up and say, this happened to me. Not only did this happen to me, but unimaginably, I'm now at the other end. I have a career I love, I have a wife who's extraordinary, and most of the time I'm pretty happy. But yet then, to be told as an adult, not just by an ex-wife, but by the Court of Appeal, you can't talk about this. You can't publish the book. You can't speak about these things. You can't even say there are ongoing legal issues with the book. Just effectively completely gagged.
You gave me fairly strict instructions when we first met about, you know, as I said, what can I do on air to help you? You said nothing, mate, really.
It's terrifying. They were monitoring my Twitter feed 24 hours a day. They were writing the most of appalling letters. When I tweeted about free speech after the Charlie Hebdo thing, immediately, within 20 minutes, a letter, you have to take it down, or we'll write to the Supreme Court, we'll consider contempt of court proceedings.
Is there any way, and possibly it's too soon for you to even want to see it like this, is there any way in which this horrible experience you have had actually speaks positively of the legal process? Because you did win. And I know that there were nights, weeks, months when you thought you wouldn't, and you thought you wouldn't be able to tell your story. But somebody, I mean, the way the law works, if somebody wants to be represented in a certain way, they have that right. Yeah. And what you trust the system to do is deliver justice. And so...
And there are safeguards in place. You're absolutely right. Just like after the initial hearing in the High Court, the judge dismissed their case out of hand. He struck it out and, in effect, said, this is insane. Of course, the book goes ahead. They were granted the right to appeal because that's what happens in a democracy in a free country. And then, for some unimaginable reason, they were granted an appeal. And then I applied to the Supreme Court, which is the final kind of safeguard in place. And thank God they listened to it. And 4 months later, they ruled unanimously that, and in effect, they changed the law so that this couldn't happen again, because the implications were terrifying for broadcasters, for journalists, for writers.
Yes, because the precedent would be almost unthinkable.
Of course. I mean, your show could be pulled because someone somewhere might hear it and they may have an issue with, you know, Jewish women driving cars.
Yes.
I mean, unimaginable Jewish women driving cars in 2005. I don't know what they're thinking.
If people who may have just tuned in to listen to James won't have heard that call, although I'm quite taken with the tweet that just says, you just took that bloke to school, James. If only his wife could do the same with his children in a car. How worried are you? And again, I'm conscious of the fact that this is still box fresh. I imagine you still haven't quite. You must still wait, because I know you've struggled with mental illness. It's in the book. Is that the right verb to use? Of course you do.
I think so many of us do.
And this must have set you back. And
I was doing so well before this happened.
Well, you are again,
genuinely.
And you will again.
This was the whole first year of my marriage. Can you imagine that hanging over us? I'm in debt up to my eyeballs. I haven't slept, it feels like, in a year. I've lost weight. I was on very serious medication by the end of it. I'm off that now because I think it's the right thing to do. But you've got to fight things like this. The minute someone tells you to shut up, you know you're doing something right. And I think you've got to fight against that. You've got to say, what about the countless millions who have gone through something like this, who aren't able to talk about it, either because they didn't make it this far, or because, again, they're backed into this terrible silent corner where the perpetrators or the family, it's just a culture of denial.
That's why they want you. They want you silent.
This is absolutely right. And yet, the irony of that, when you can't open a paper these days without seeing it everywhere. And if it took me, I'm so ridiculously overprivileged, if it took me with my famous friends and healthy-ish bank balance and semi-public profile, a team of 26 lawyers in total, and psychiatrists and psychologists, if it took me 14 months to earn the right legally to just tell the truth about abuse, my abuse, no one else's, then what the hell kind of chance is a Savile victim or someone from Rotherham or Rochdale or one of those in the missing dossier from Dolphin Square? What chance do they have? How many books haven't made it? How many stories haven't made it out there that we don't even know about because it was injuncted in the early stages?
When did your resolve harden to such a degree? When in the process? Because I mean, people may not be aware. They should be. I've bigged you up often enough. You're a brilliant pianist with a passion to bring classical music to people who wouldn't ordinarily get close to it. You've done this on television, you do it in your stage shows, and you're poised now to do it, I hope, for the rest of what will be a long and glorious career. But you were not supposed to be necessarily a crusader for this sort of issue. You were not supposed to be necessarily a poster boy for this sort of thing. Well, at what point because there must have been a bit of you, James, that just thought, all right, forget about the book, forget about my demons, I've met a wonderful woman, I'm rebuilding my life, I'll concentrate on the music. Yeah,
but then what? Then it would have been, well, you know what, you talk in your shows about Chopin, you know, being a bit of a basket case. You can't do that now. Your next Channel 4 show, you might be talking a little bit about mental health. You can't do that. Where would it stop? And it became apparent very quickly, not only were the costs so far out of control, so quickly, but a line had to be drawn in the sand. There comes a point, doesn't there, where you have to go, enough is enough. I mean, this is so wrong on so many levels. And all of my friends were in agreement. I asked them so many times, have I got this terribly wrong? Am I making a huge mistake here? And the answer was a resounding no, and that's why it was the front page of the papers. albeit anonymized, because it was such a bewildering judgment. I thought, I don't want to be known as the guy who got raped as a kid any more than I want to be known as the guy who's a Pisces or 5'11", or 10.5 if you're honest, or the guy who plays the piano. But it's a part of who I am, just like all of those things are. So why should I shut up? What about the people who can't talk about it? I'm happy to talk about it because it's important, because not enough people talk about it. Not just the abuse, but the appalling legacy that leaves us with. Self-harm. It's an epidemic in this country. It's not just skinny teenage girls. It's investment bankers in their 50s. It's housewives. It's grandparents. It's everywhere. We have to be able to shine a light on that stuff, because only by doing that is the shame and the secrecy going to start to lessen.
As we head towards the travel news, we'll be back straight afterwards. I was going to insert a little observation, because I want people to go out and buy Instrumental, your autobiography, about it being a journey out of bleakness, a journey out of darkness, but you've just done that yourself, so I won't bother.
This is Mark Rise in the LBC Travel Centre. The M1 northbound remains closed between junction 13 and 14, Bedford and Milton Keynes, due to a serious accident that happened earlier. There is a diversion in place, but there's a 7-mile queue from junction 12 at Flitwick. There are also long delays on the northbound A5. M25 is looking very heavy clockwise all the way between junction 5 and 16. That's Sevenoaks to the M40, a long delay around that area. And also anti-clockwise heading into the Dartford Tunnel back to junction 3 for the M20. Slow traffic on the M11 southbound between junction 7 at Harlow and 6 for the M25, and also northbound at junction 8 at Bishop Stortford. Grange Road in Bermondsey has one lane blocked westbound due to a broken down lorry at Tower Bridge Road. That's causing heavy traffic through the area. It's also very slow on the A13 East India Dock Road out of town between Upper North Street and Canning Town flyover. Heavier than normal on Fulham Palace Road this lunchtime. That's in both directions between Fulham Road and Hammersmith Broadway. Abellio Greater Anglia are delayed in and out of Liverpool Street due to a problem with the track earlier, and up to 25-minute delay on South Eastern at London Bridge. Keeping London moving, your next travel updates in half an hour.
This is LBC.
On average, 2 people over 65 die in a house fire every week. Please test their smoke alarms regularly. Fire kills. You can prevent it.
We all like to splash out on holiday, relaxing and living a life of luxury. But you don't need to start the big spend getting to the airport. Just Airports is an affordable, hassle-free chauffeur service, exclusive to servicing London's airports, in style. You can get a quote and book online at justairports.com, via the Just Airports app, or by calling 0208 900 1666. Justairports.com. Spend your money out there, not getting there.
At Honda, we're always looking at how to make things better, greater, even more excellent. Take the spacious Jazz. Now available with complimentary upgrade from the 1.2 SE to the 1.4 ES Plus, worth £1,500. So you get a bigger engine, cruise control, 16-inch alloys and more at no extra cost. When does better become even more excellent? When it's on us. That's when. See your local Honda dealer for 0% APR representative. Terms and conditions apply.
If you run a business and you're near a computer, type the name of your company into Google now. Chances are everything you find will be good. But all it takes is one negative review and your reputation on any kind of digital and social media site can change just like that. Reputation.com can manage and improve your brand's image online to make sure potential customers find out about the good reputation you've worked so hard to build up. For a free report on your online reputation and to find out how we can help, visit Reputation.com.
Boots do a really good deal where no matter how many extra pairs you get, they're all half price.
You had an option of another pair of glasses,
Yeah.
or you could have sunglasses.
Like you, I've got prescription sunglasses.
Yeah.
So like one at my boyfriend's house, one at my dad's house, one at my mum's. So whenever I need them, I have them.
Buy any pair of glasses and get every additional pair half price, including prescription sunglasses. Only at Boots Opticians. Same customer, same transaction. Terms and conditions apply. See in-store for details.
If moving office is on your agenda this year or next, now is the perfect time to speak to the experts. Talk to Morris Interiors, who've been designing and fitting out workplaces for 4 decades. Initial designs and proposals, tailored uniquely to your project, are offered free of charge and without obligation. To arrange a meeting or simply find out more, visit officerelocation.co.uk. Maris. Workplace. Design. experts.
118434, the handy number for handy numbers.
Calls cost 76p plus £1.53 per minute from a BT landline. Other networks vary, and mobiles cost considerably more.
This Friday, with Euro Millions from the National Lottery, you could become one of 10 guaranteed UK millionaires who'll also win a London High Life experience. Get your ticket to the High Life this Mega Friday. Play makes it possible. Game-specific rules for non-cash prizes available at nationallottery.co.uk. Account terms, games, rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Coming up at 1 on LBC, Sheila Fogarty.
Why does the UN draw the line at age 69 in its new health targets, and where does it leave healthcare for older people?
Leading Britain's conversation, Sheila Fogarty. This afternoon from 1 on LBC.
10 minutes to 1. We're going to run out of time before we've even really scratched the surface of my guest's story, although you have perhaps now enjoyed the most relevant parts in terms of recent events in the news. Joseph says, what an amazing interview, what an amazing man and story. And Romana James Rhodes has just said that she has got goosebumps running up and down her spine as a result of the story you've told. But I don't want, as you say, and here's one. Who's Joe Chamberlain? Joe Chamberlain has said a massive shout out to James Rhodes on the James O'Brien show.
Joe is my brother-in-law. He's about 6'7" and 300 pounds, and he's just the best brother-in-law ever. Brilliant guy. I love him to bits.
Good to have you listening, Joe. So let's talk about the book, and the book Instrumental it's you, isn't it? In 300 pages.
It is, and that's the brilliant thing. I had no idea this was going to happen. To be able to have the opportunity, to be lucky enough to put in writing everything I feel about music, which is, the one consistent thing that has never let me down. The love I have for my son, which only ever gets bigger. That's what they don't tell you when you become parents. Just when you think it can't get bigger, it just gets bigger. My wife, my career, the dreadful state of music education in this country. There's so many things I wanted to be able to put down in my own words, because I'm a massive control freak.
You're also a brilliant writer. You'll allow me to say that.
I will. Thank you. That's
it makes me a little bit cross,
actually,
because I've seen you play the piano, and we talked about religion in the last hour. The Almighty is doshing out a gift on that scale. I'm not sure you also deserve to get the writing gift as well.
Blimey, I had a good editor.
Yeah.
But to be able to talk about that, and also to talk about the dark stuff, the stuff that people don't talk about, child rape, self-harm, drug addiction, suicide, how it's actually a really genuinely valid choice so often, and it seems like the only way out. And how do you get through that? How do you get to the other side? And also, little things. I built a Spotify playlist that it runs alongside the book. So every chapter is a piece of music. And not just the piece of music that I wanted, but the actual person performing it that I've chosen. Because I think I would love for something to come out of this book, which is that people who may want to know a little bit more about classical music, which has such a bad press for such good reason.
And which should be everybody.
Well, it should be, but, the people behind it have so many issues. I mean, the performers and the gatekeepers, it drives me crazy. The music is so immortal. Even if you think, I want to listen to Beethoven's Fifth, you go on iTunes, you search Beethoven's Fifth, there are 300 recordings of the same piece. Where do you start? And, of course, sadly, you often end up with a kind of 50 best chill-out classics ever. And that breaks my heart. And so I've kind of hand-picked 2025 of the most amazing pieces.
What do we do?
It's all in the book. All you go to is bit.do/instrumental. And it's all there. Or tweet me, and I'll tweet it after the show. I'll do that. At J Rhodes Pianist. Look at that. God, I'm plugging everything. Can we not talk about that stuff? Even don't buy the book. Just listen to the playlist.
Months ago, but you weren't
I wasn't allowed to.
Come on, were you?
Go figure. And at least I'm on for the right reasons. I'm not on the kind of, Crime Watch version. Or,
Indeed.
Have you seen this man version?
And it will do that, won't it? It will just, because when I've seen you on stage, it's an unapologetic, this notion of highbrow and lowbrow, I think you reject, don't you?
Totally. Not just that, but the idea that, you have to somehow suffer to be an artist, or, that creativity demands a certain amount of pain. It doesn't. Everyone undergoes trauma. Everyone undergoes pain. We do creative things and succeed in our given fields despite that. Not because of it. And the idea, if Mozart or Schubert were alive today and coming to the Wigmore Hall or the Barbican, seeing people having to wear ties and not being allowed to clap in the right certain places, they would laugh like a drain at how it's presented. This is not how it's meant to be. You're meant to just sit, relax, close your eyes, and listen to this music. Where else can we do that without being assaulted by tweets and adverts and, you know, Britain's Got Talent, this kind of weird ADHD 3-minute chunks? Enough already. Can't we just slow down and enjoy something for 20 minutes without having to get up and talk about it or shout about it? Or can't we just switch off?
Probably a more pertinent point at this point in human history than at any other previously.
Quite. I mean, you can't watch a TV show now without titles that finish after 7 seconds. Do you remember 24?
Yeah.
Amazing show. You got 4 storylines
Yeah.
at the same time
Yeah.
going on in real time. I mean, that would fry anyone's brain. And now that's how we live. At work, we're on email all the time. We have to slow down.
When you're playing privately, not in front of it, or maybe even in front of an audience, they may be no different. How lost do you get?
The best concerts, I get totally lost. I mean, I'm lost anyway, let's be honest. I don't even know what month it is. I don't know what I had for breakfast. But just to close my eyes, to disappear into 100,000 notes from memory without worrying about, you know, if my mum's in the audience or that nasty guy from the Times is reviewing it, or did I leave the oven on, or, you know, does my ass look big, or, you know, any of that weird stuff. If I can just disappear, it's the best thing ever. And if that can translate even for a fraction of time to the audience who are listening, I have the lights down low, I introduce the pieces, and then you play these pieces that will always be beyond the comprehension of even the greatest minds of our time. And there's a reason for that. This stuff is immortal. It is life-changing. And so I guess the 2 messages for the book are music really can save lives, and it really can open a door that will change your life forever. But also, please, please, please don't shut up about mental illness, about sexual abuse, about the rape of children. You don't have to go on about it all the time, but no one should have the power to tell you we don't talk about this stuff. We have to. It's our duty, if we're lucky enough to have survived it, and be given a voice.
Forgive me if this is mawkish or inappropriate or just a little bit stupid, but do you think you'd be here today if it wasn't for the piano?
No. There's no question. I know. I mean, I don't even have to think about that. I don't. I wouldn't be here. I mean, I tried 4 times to kill myself. Obviously, I wasn't very good at it, and thank God, it didn't happen. But without the piano, I mean, I can't conceive of life without the piano. And I guess in a way, I'm so lucky to have that. But it's the greatest thing ever. It's the greatest thing ever. After my wife, I have to say that, who is just, you know, also. Life without her would be unimaginable. But the piano is just...
How did you meet?
We met through a mutual friend. I weighed less than 8 stone. I was covered in scars. I was fresh out of a mental hospital, a secure ward. And this girl, just with a beauty that just knocks you for 6. I'm with a friend. She was a mutual friend of his. So she comes in, and I'm drooling and just staring at her. I can't find the power of words. Somehow managed to con her number out of her. And then I texted her, and she wrote back. Can you imagine that? I had nothing. I had no career, no albums, no money. Just I smelt funny. I said inappropriate things, and then she wrote back, and she went on a date, and bravely she then went on a second date, and it was the most extraordinary thing. She is the great love of my life, and you know what? James, it's that great. Sorry, it's that Salman Rushdie thing. He said something like, "Women choose men, and men, if they're very lucky, sometimes get chosen." And I feel like I've been chosen, and it's just, I feel like the kid at school who was just terrible at sports but somehow got picked first for the football team.
You'll allow me to say you don't have any choice, because Sheila Fogarty's about to start speaking, that I think she's pretty lucky too. Instrumental by James Rhodes. I can't tell you how happy I am that you're here.
Thank you, me too. It's been just, I've been listening to you for so long. I'm such a fan.
We better stop before it gets soppy. Yes, of course he was. He was talking to Sheila Fogarty.
I choose you too, Jason.
Monday morning from 10. Have a lovely weekend. Thanks, Sheila.
Thanks very much, James. So, listen, multiple choice question for you. If someone was making fun of my religion or race, I would try to make them stop. So far, so good. Then, even if it required...